Welcome, everybody, and if Happy New Year, Hag Sameach, um, and it is amazing season, of course, as we are in the holidays, the high Jewish holidays, and many of you probably are in that incredible ascent this week in the 10 days of awe, headed towards Yom Kippur on Saturday, and just in an extremely important time, a crucial time, obviously with the state of Israel, which is hence why we wanted to get together with you today and just provide some updates that we believe are significant. So many of you are giving, so many of you are praying and investing time and reading and staying up to speed through newspapers and really have taken incredible steps to be informed. Well, we just want to add to that information today and to thank all of you for your participation and engagement with these organizations. So that's the first thing to say. I think the second thing to say is this is the 1 year anniversary of October 7th, that fateful and horrific day where that vile enemy, the Hamas terrorist organization, not a state, an organization, barreled over Israel's border and ransacked 30 communities and killed 1,200 people and took 258 hostages back to the dungeons of Gaza. We are still in that war today. And what I'd like to report is, although it has been a major war harkening back to 1948 and its critical nature, existential threat that Israel is in all around her. It is amazing that we have turned a corner in these last weeks to see Israel on the rise, to see a breaking out, a moving forward, an advancement of the IDF in Lebanon and being able to afflict so quickly, miraculously even. It's almost been a story like you would see in James Bond with the walkie-talkies and the pagers, something we would see with Israel's mighty men under the leadership of King David. Well, anyway, it's a wonderful season now to begin to see that turning in the war. And we want to talk about that just a little bit, and just the importance of this day in history, because I believe that it really is setting us up for last things theologically, as we understand where we are in history, but also reinforces the importance, the crucial importance of the U.S.-Israel relationship. Well, I have Ari Sasher with us today, my long friend and companion in this journey. We began back in 2011 as we took a group of chairmen off of House Armed Services to go see the Iron Dome. And nobody had ever seen it before. And Ari was educating on it as the chief engineer, systems engineer of Iron Dome at the time. And he's played a critical role in the building of Israel's defense. And Ari has, I guess, 4 children in this war. So he has a few things to say about it. Lives in the north where all of the rockets are coming down from Hezbollah into the northern region. Ari, you are a hero for the nation of Israel. And I just want to thank you for being with us today in the middle of your holiday and in the middle of such intensity.
Thank you very much, Heather. Thank you all for being here. There's rocket fire all around me right now, so if I have to get out, you'll forgive me. I mean, I have to run down to my bomb shelter, which I've been doing frequently over the last oh my gosh, over the last number of days. Over the last day or two, Hezbollah has really increased their rocket fire to the point that it's more than a nuisance. It's really sitting in the back of your neck. Where are we? How did we get here, and where are we going? A year ago, October the 7th, at 6:28 in the morning, Israel was a country that lived in a make-believe la-la land. One of the most difficult things to read is clips from the news a year ago that have zero editing. They're just there in front of you. And you read how our army said that Hamas is deterred and you read how Hamas was having war game exercises by the fence, and we poo-pooed it. And you read about how the Israeli society was well and truly on its way to disintegration because of discussions that took place because of a judiciary reform or revolution. It depends what side you're on. And our enemies took advantage of that. They took advantage of our false sense of security. They took advantage of our arrogance,
Mhm.
and they took advantage of our naivete. We had this wall between Israel and Gaza, and that was going to protect us from Gaza because they were never going to get through the wall or under the wall. It was impenetrable, just like all other walls before it. Maginot Line, for instance, the Bar-Lev line, two walls that lasted about 3 hours when the enemies tried to storm it. We also had people living in the north, the Hezbollah, an Iranian proxy. Hamas is an Iranian proxy. Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy, and we knew full well what Hezbollah was capable of. We knew the weaponry that they had. We had a good idea of where they were storing it, and yet we let both of those arenas. Oh my gosh. Those are the sounds. If you can hear thuds in the background, those are sounds of Iron Dome interceptions. We let those wounds fester, and we let them fester for too long. And Hamas knew that we were beatable. Hezbollah called us, Hassan Nasrallah, who's the head of Hezbollah, he referred to us as a spider web, paper
Mm.
tiger, spider web. We were eminently defeatable. And on the morning of October the 7th, Hamas did things that we should have known they were capable of doing. We should have known that they were morally capable and militarily capable. Oh my God. Sorry, guys. I haven't heard this kind of rocket fire. That's why my dog is here by my feet, scared to death. Let me take a breath and I'll get back to what I was saying. Hamas low-teched us. We were the highest tech army in the world. We were smart. We were small. We could get the job done. We could protect people. And Hamas went, and they went underneath us. They knew we owned the electromagnetic spectrum in Gaza. And so instead of using cell phones, they used pagers, or they used even runners that were passing messages back and forth. They used landlines. They knew that we had systems on the fence that were there to deter anyone from coming up to the fence, and a person who dared come up to the fence would be automatically fired on. And Hamas blinded us. And then Hamas came out of tunnels, which we should have known full well were at the mouth of the right at the border of these of the wall, and they came out, and with bulldozers, some of which we had given to them as part of us being very nice to them, they plowed through and they swarmed. Subsequently, it became known that this was not only a plan for Hamas. Hezbollah was meant to do the same thing. There was meant to be coordination between the two. We had always known that Hezbollah had plans to capture the Galilee, the northern Galilee, and yet they didn't. And we were looking at them, knowing what they're full capable of. And they had behind the scenes arranged with Hamas that when Hamas penetrated from the south, and they would penetrate from the north, they would storm the northern wall. Their 2,000 commando Radwan soldiers would come in. And if you thought what happened in the south on October the 7th was horrific, then there would have been order of magnitude worse in the north. And why didn't it happen? It didn't happen because Hamas jumped the gun, because there was this party, this Nova party, this trance music party, and they heard a and they knew that there were hundreds and thousands of Israelis there. They were dancing. They were just enjoying the holiday because it was the Simchat Torah holiday. And this is their way of enjoying the holiday.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't not do it. They knew what they wanted to do, and they knew Hezbollah was supposed to join them, but they just couldn't hold back. And so they gave their soldiers, and these were soldiers. They gave them large amounts of amphetamines. They crossed the border and they attacked. Hezbollah didn't know. Hezbollah couldn't attack as well. And as soon as they attacked, we had a massive draft, including my sons, who were drafted and immediately sent north because our military brass figured, whoa, They pulled the wool over our eyes there. Going to pull the wool over our eyes in the north. That's not going to happen on my watch. It was the worst breakdown in intelligence in Israel since the Yom Kippur War, where we were surprised by an onslaught from the Egyptians and from the Syrians. And the Yom Kippur War started 50 years and 1 day before October the 7th. It started on October the 6th, 1973. And because of our arrogance, because of our lack of humility, we did not learn from our mistakes. There was a conception then that Egypt would never attack unless they had bombers, and they attacked. And there was a conception now that Hamas would never attack because Hamas wants to rule. They want to administer Gaza. They want peace. They want prosperity. They want the dead Jews. They want the dead Israelis. And they were quite successful, unfortunately. A day later, Hezbollah joined the fray. And Hezbollah started firing rockets. And every day since that day, they have been slowly but surely ramping up what they fire at us, the extent that they fire at us, the courage and the sheer gall of what they fire at. And they were successful beyond their dreams. And we were scared to death of Hezbollah because they thought we were a paper tiger. And we thought that Hezbollah, they were Superman. They had 150,000 rockets. On day 1 to day 7 of the war, they would rain in 2,000 rockets a day. They would swamp our systems, which would be able to protect only critical assets and maybe some soldiers, and the cities would be left to fend for themselves. And yet, Israel responded in a way that no one expected Israel to respond. If we had spent the last 15 years managing the threat, we decided that the time has come to take it out. And against the express wishes of the United States of America, we went into Gaza. We brought in 3 brigades into Gaza, and we methodically went from the north and to the south and cleared out Hamas. We cleared them out above ground, we clear them out below ground, because to our chagrin, and we kind of knew this was happening, Gaza had a city underneath the ground of tunnels, a network of tunnels where they stored rockets, where they had factories that made rockets, where they stored some of the 250 odd hostages that they brought back. You fast forward to now, the situation is completely changed. Again, against America's explicit desire, Israel went in to the most southern point of Gaza, to what we call the Philadelphia Corridor. And that is what gives Gaza oxygen. That is what opens a gateway between Gaza and the outside world, because everywhere else in Gaza is surrounded either by sea, which we own, or Israel, which we thought we owned. But the only way that they can get in and out is in and out of Gaza is through the Philadelphia Corridor. That's the way they were getting in. They were getting in their rockets. They were getting in their North Korean ordnance. They were getting in Syrian ordnance, Iranian ordnance through the Sinai Desert, through the Philadelphia Corridor. And we knew that if we destroyed Gaza, we captured Gaza, we turned Hamas into an organization that no longer had military capabilities that could threaten us. As long as we kept the Philadelphia Corridor open, then it was like putting out 80% of a fire, because that 20% of a fire is going to come in and burn the rest of it down. And against the express wishes of the United States, we went in. And we shut down the Philadelphia Corridor. We dug down below the Philadelphia Corridor, and we found tunnels that you could drive trucks through. And these trucks had been going through and had been arming Gaza. And now it's all different. That underground tunnels, there's 2 different kinds of tunnels. There's the highway tunnels that go from the north of Gaza to the south of Gaza. They are no more. There are these little snaky tunnels that go off those larger tunnels. Getting rid of those will take years, and we'll do it if we have to. Hamas is no longer a military threat to Israel. You hear Hamas today launching a rocket at Tel Aviv, launching 3 rockets at Tel Aviv. It was guaranteed to happen because we couldn't assume that we had taken out all of their ordnance. We take out what we can. We keep our soldiers in Gaza until everything we need to take out is out. How long will that take? Don't know. People talk about the day after in Gaza. What's going to be on the day after in Gaza? I can tell you a secret. It's already the day after in Gaza. Israel has completed its mission of preventing Hamas, preventing them from using any military power. Hamas has now been relegated to a guerrilla organization. They do not administer anymore. There is no administration in Gaza. all of the Hamas, let's call it chief officers, have been killed, except for potentially one, Yahya Sinwar, who has been off the grid for more than a month. No one knows exactly what's going on with him. Hamas is in disarray. Hamas has no more weapons other than small caches of weapons, and they cannot rearm because we've shut down the Philadelphia corridor. What will happen now is that Israel will remain in Gaza, slowly reducing the amount of soldiers and putting them in and out as we need them. Friend of mine, his son's there blowing up tunnels. He goes in the day, he comes out at night in order to maintain safety. We now have to figure out how to administer Gaza, how to school the Gazan children, how to teach the Gazan children. That's coming up. But make no mistake, Hamas as a military organization has been defeated. And that leaves Hezbollah. So what do we do to Hezbollah? How do we treat Hezbollah? Hezbollah is not an existential threat, but it is a staging ground for Iran because there is what we call a land bridge that connects Hezbollah, connects Lebanon to Israel. And the Iranians can just send all this great stuff into Lebanon. And we had convinced ourselves that it's okay if they fire at us for a year. Let boys be boys. Until the equation broke down about 3 weeks ago. And 3 weeks ago, we set an operation into motion that could not be stopped from the day we started it. On the first day, we blew up their beepers. How we got their beepers, how we got their pagers is a story in and of itself. Hamas had no more pagers, so they were not going to communicate with telephones because we own the electromagnetic spectrum. So then they used walkie-talkies. The next day, we blew up the walkie-talkies, taking out chief Hezbollah operatives. And that left a very small number of high-ranking people because the only other people that were running Hezbollah were people that were deemed not important enough to have a pager 2 days earlier. And so the people that wanted to talk, they had to get together to talk. And we knew they were going to get together and talk because they had to react. And we knew exactly where it was that they were. And we sent 60 tons of ordnance and took out a building in which a number of the remaining higher ups, except for two, were meeting, and we took out everybody. It was only a matter of time from then until, against the express wishes of the United States of America, we went into Lebanon because we have 60,000 people that can't go home because the Lebanese, the Hezbollah, can go across the border and take shots at them, not using these rockets, but using anti-tank weapons that you can see what you're shooting at. We have to move them to a location, not necessarily this Litani River you hear about. We have to move them far enough so there is no more line of sight between them and Israel. We can bring our people back home. And that is what we're doing now against the express will of the administration of the United States of America. And then we had to take out number one. Hezbollah still had their legendary head, Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, who had been the head of Hezbollah for 32 years. And I don't know how we knew where he was, and I don't know how he got so much ordnance there, but we sent another 60 tons of ordnance and took out the apartment in which he and another group of people, higher-ups, the only remaining higher-ups in Hezbollah, were meeting against the express wishes of the United States. Indeed, Mr. Netanyahu was in the United Nations at the time, and he was speaking when the airplanes were in the air. Didn't say a word. We informed the United States of America 10 minutes before the bombs were dropped that this is what's going to happen. Love it or leave it. A week later, we took out Hassan Nasrallah's replacement. Hassan Nasrallah's replacement has decided that he no longer wants to be in politics. He would rather be a religious cleric. This guy wants to live. Hezbollah is in disarray. What they are firing at us is maybe a tenth, maybe less than that, of what we thought they would fire at us. No, it's not fun. And yes, I'm spending an inordinate amount of time in bomb shelters, but we mean it. And we're going to take out Hezbollah, whether or not the Western world wants us to do it. Because as far as we're concerned, if we don't take out Hezbollah, then Iran has that staging ground. Iran, did someone mention Iran firing 500 missiles at us in April, and in 300 in April, and 200 a couple of days ago, where you could see the action from the northern border? My son saw it 150 miles away. They cannot go unpunished. Not because we need to tit for tat them, but because they serve as an existential threat to the United States. Israel has taken away staging grounds. Israel has put out a large part of that ring of fire, people like to call it, surrounding Israel. But as long as Iran remains, then Israel will be under threat. It is the goal of the United States of America. I was speaking to a guy who was interviewed for CBS, part of USIEA. I was interviewed on CBS News, and the interviewer told me, the new enemy of the United States is no longer the Russians. It's not the
Mm,
Chinese. It's not the Iranians. It's
mm,
escalation. The United States of America wants to do all that it can to prevent escalation. It does not want a war in the Middle East. It does not want to increase the war in Russia. It wants to keep things the way they are. As far as we are concerned in Israel, escalation means kicking the can down the road, and we can no longer kick that can down the road, because we kicked that can down the road in Gaza for nearly 20 years, and look what it did. Look what it did in Hezbollah. We're
yeah,
beyond that. We have had an epiphany of biblical proportions, and we have decided to destroy our enemy, because that is the only way that we can live in peace. We can no longer live together with them. There's no one to negotiate with. The goal of Hezbollah and of Hamas is to destroy the Jewish state. You cannot negotiate with these. We tried.
mm,
Doesn't work.
mm,
And so what are we going to do? Now, how can the United States of America help? We are going to maximize the effect of our force in Lebanon, and I
mm,
guarantee you that we're going to respond in Iran. I don't know how. Will we hit their nuclear facilities, Air Force bases, rockets, perhaps their oil fields, and bankrupt them in one day? I don't know what our plans are, but I can tell you that 3 weeks ago, this was set into motion. And the
mm,
people that set this into motion, if they knew that the Lebanese were going to buy these particular pagers, they certainly knew that the Iranians were going to fire 200 missiles at us. We are living in biblical times. Israel was a mere shadow of itself a year ago, and Israelis have been galvanized. We are still cantankerous, and we still argue with each other, and we can always find things to argue about. Even the hostages, we find things we can argue about. Should we get them out now? Should we make an agreement? But we are a different people, because we have realized that we have seen the enemy. The enemy is not us. And if we work together, we can defeat the enemy. And if we defeat this enemy, we can open up the Middle East. We can live in security. We can bring more people into the Abraham Accords, more countries into the Abraham Accords, because what people understand in the Middle East is force. We have responded. We have responded forcefully. We have responded emphatically. We will continue to do that until the war is won. Israel has not won a war since 1967. We're not used to it. It might take a little time, especially because friends of ours are trying to get us to go really, really slow. But we'll
mm.
do it. We'll do it because we want to do it. We'll do it because we need to do it. And we will bring a new era into the Middle East. It is my firm hope that the United States of America supports us, that they understand that we are maximizing a different parameter than they are, that they will give us the weaponry that we need to do the job, that they will help us, as they did on Tuesday night when Aegis missile ships shot down some of those Iranian missiles, and that they will not hold us back from doing things that we believe that we need to do. We are your ally. Support your ally. Trust your ally. Thank you very much.
So good. Ari, thank you. What a patriot. What a leader you are. And we just so appreciate the incredible ride that we're on with you in partnership with U.S. Israel Education Association. And we appreciate the role that you're playing inside of the state of Israel today. It's really astounding. And not to mention that you've got your children in this war. So I know that you and Tova don't sleep much at night, which is the case for a lot of Israelis. Well, I want
Heather,
to,
that's the point. Let me just say one thing. That's the point. I'm not alone here. If I'm a hero, then there are millions of other Israelis that are heroes too. We've been shoved into a place that if we aren't heroes, then we're not going to see tomorrow.
It really is. Well, for whatever reason, God Himself has authored the nation of Israel, and He's brought them to this point through extraordinary odds, leading them back to found a state, to have their own land and territory, under an eternal promise to them about land and people living in a particular land, and really offering blessings to the world. And that is why you're there, and it's why you will stay there. And I think that one of the things I'd like to bring out to all of you is just that I believe that if you think back on it, that the United States Congress is playing that iconic role in the world. In other words, if you take all of the nations in Europe and around the world today, and some people say one thing and, yeah, we'll throw some support, and then in the next minute they embargo Israel. They, put up bans, and they try to stop the progress on the sale of arms and things like that. This is happening all over the world, and it's happening, frankly, in our White House today. But I want to just say that duplicitous response to Israel in word and deed is not going to thwart what God is going to do. And I want to bring that up here on this call, that God has a plan inside of that. He has authored a plan. He's already written about it through the prophets. He anticipated Israel coming back into the land, and when they would come back in, they would live in favor. Now, you might ask, Ari, is this the year of favor? And you might say, well, I'm not sure I would say I'm living under favor, but God said that they're living under favor. And that means that they have the benefit, the backing of God himself. And that is the importance of this. There's a sense of every Israeli and the need for every Israeli to come into that place of their biblical identity, the understanding of who they really are according to their history, to have an actual and real relationship with God. And that is where God is leading Israel. I'm going to take out your heart of stone. Once you're in the land, I'm going to give you a heart of flesh, put a new spirit in you, and I'm going to give you the ability to walk with me, to know me. Well, God is creating that thirst. He's ordering the steps and enlivening that. And in that process, as Israel comes further and further into that revelation and understanding, this whole next generation, then there is that incredible opportunity for them to lead from a place of understanding their authority. Well, the National Leadership Center on the hills of Samaria is doing just that. As many of you know, we have taken up a place, a location, a staging ground, if you will, to see to that particular purpose. How can we come alongside Israel in these extraordinary days under the banner of their unfolding prophecies, and how can we assist them into that place where God has said he's going to take them? Well, I believe that we have been able to achieve a great result. And as many of you know, we've had over 120,000 Israelis go through the training in the National Leadership Center. We have our teams now that are in the schools. We've been in over 500 high schools. And particularly during this war, we've been called down to the borders. That is to work with those that are in trauma and to bring IDF soldiers and leaders, widows and orphans into the National Leadership Center to go through our program, which is literally designed to help people that are going through trauma. So this has been an incredible, industrious effort on the part of JH Israel this year and the National Leadership Center to accommodate, to step into this season with Israel. We have a nation that is in trauma, Israel in trauma, and God is going to remove that trauma off that nation. And I believe that we're playing a part in seeing that happen. Alongside that, many of you are following us on U.S.-Israel Education Association, and that is our work on Capitol Hill. That is the briefings, the education that we're doing, taking members, senior members of Congress who are on the relevant committees related to Israel to Israel, and taking them on secondary advanced education trips. USIEA has grown thanks to so many of you participating and giving and caring, but we've been able to grow and develop a platform on Capitol Hill, a staff actually that is in and out of Capitol Hill, and we have been able to achieve some great results. I want to say this, that when we look at these nations that are surrounding Israel, let us understand that God saw it. He saw it in Ezekiel 38 and 39. It was prophesied in Psalm 83 that these nations would come against Israel. This is no surprise, even though it catches our breath and holds us with impact. It's not a surprise to God. He spoke about it. He planned it. There was a plan, and he knew that this would take place. The great news is he said he will destroy that. He's not going to allow those confederations to actually succeed. And so I think that what we understand here is that the United States has a role to play that in leading the free world. And I'm going to stand on the Washington Mall this Saturday on Yom Kippur. And I'm going to stand there and I'm going to say unto the Lord with hundreds of thousands of people on the Washington Mall, and we're going to repent for the role that our leaders have played inside this war in a duplicitous sort of way. We've had a containment and an appeasement policy that is not working with Iran. It is very, very simple, for all of you on this line, on this Zoom call. Containment and appeasement is we're going to give you money or we're going to release the sanctions and just really hope that you'll be nice to us. Hopefully you'll do what's right. Hopefully you'll come into the Confederation of Nations that do the right thing. Well, that is asinine. That does not work. It's not working. And so I'm going to be standing there on Yom Kippur, and we're going to be repenting and asking God to forgive that. And why are we doing that? Why is that so important? Well, we have a role to play out of the United States. If the United States is going to lead the free world, if we're going to continue in that pattern, we have to serve Israel. Because if we're not serving Israel, we will not lead the free world. And the Lord himself will see to it. Very, very clearly, Isaiah 60, 9 and 10. Though in anger I struck you, Israel, but with great compassion will I bring you back. And the nations will come unto you with their wealth, the kings led in triumphal procession. For the nation that will not serve you, O Israel, will perish and be destroyed. We can watch the nations all around the world who have destroyed themselves in so many ways, who've brought their economies low. And we can look at the world and say, you know what? We're not going to be that. The United States is going to take that place of leadership. And the best way to think about that, is the United States House and Senate. We've got a broad group of people there that continue to carry Israel. I stood up at a meeting this morning and I said there's about 40 to 50 pages, line by line, of actions that Congress has taken just since October 7th of last year on behalf of Israel. Resolutions, legislation, pushing the White House, pushing the UN, and playing that leading iconic role in the world. It is the U.S. Congress. They are the steady ship in the midst of this changing sea. And that is why we have dedicated our lives, our time. It's why we're going to continue to the United States Congress. So those are our fronts. We had a big bill that passed the House of Representatives last week. So many of you people have been following it. And that is that legislation that puts the very first FDA inside of the Middle East, inside the Abraham Accords nations, opening up a new staging ground for us to move our U.S. pharmaceutical manufacturing ingredients to our ally nations out of China. We had promises from Donald Trump that he would do it. We had promises from Biden that he would do it. And nobody has been able to reconfigure and figure out how to do that. USIEA worked for 2.5 years. And last week, we were able to get the legislation through the House of Representatives. Hear ye, hear ye. Very excited about that opportunity. And the process that we're going to be going through in the future is going to be, of course, with the Senate and the White House. So we would love your prayers around that as God wants to strengthen those Abraham Accords nations, our ally nations with them. We have our own confederation of nations that are willing to stand with Israel and stand in a cooperation with economy and industry and intelligence in the Middle East. And God is going to work through this good confederation. Well, those are my two visions for you today. We are helping remove the trauma off the nation of Israel. That is our goal. We're working with other organizations. We're standing in the gap in that place. And we're also on Capitol Hill with USIEA, making a difference and putting forth the education with members of Congress as it concerns this war and our lanes, our action lanes of legislation, like I just mentioned to you. Well, I think I've probably gone over. So there's some question and answer time. And if anybody has a question, who's going to lead that? John Leslie.
Sure. So we'll open it up if anyone has a question for Heather or Ari at this time.
Hey, Ari, General Krulak.
General, how you going, sir?
Keep your head down, big guy.
Hey, General Krulak.
Hey, Heather. Hey, Ari, a question and then a point for you. I don't know whether you're aware of it, but the Congress has just, well, DOD has just set aside about $1.2 billion to restock their ships that are out there, which I think is really a key point. They're not leaving.
Know that.
Yeah, they're not leaving. So they're restocking the missiles on those Aegis cruisers, which is, I mean, that's obviously sending a signal certainly to the, the Navy that, hey, you guys are going to be out there for a while. The second question for you is, I guess yesterday and maybe continuing today, the Israeli and the IDF is going back at northern, the northern part of Gaza. Why is that? Well, if they had defeated it, is it just like a whack-a-mole, or what's going on?
So, sir, Gaza right now it's a closed ecosystem. Nothing can get in. No arms can get in. No arms can be built because we destroyed their factories. No more soldiers can be drafted because the people who would have trained them are no longer alive. So what you have are pockets of resistance that are mobile. This is classic guerrilla warfare, sir. And for instance, that rocket that was launched at Tel Aviv today, Israeli soldiers could have been walking on the launcher and they didn't know it. It was dug into the ground. And at the point of time, it's a great day, October the 7th, they raise the launcher, they fire off 3 rockets into Tel Aviv, and that launcher is summarily destroyed. What we have left in Gaza is burning tinders. And as long as we can keep Gaza isolated, we can put out those fires. We have reduced the amount of troops in Gaza because of what's going on in the north. Having to fight a 2-front war makes things take longer, sir, and hopefully we'll be able to get that down to 1 front. I do not see Israeli troops leaving Gaza for the near foreseeable future. As unpalatable as that sounds, I think that is a fact that everyone's going to have to get their head around. We have to look, how do we administer Gaza?
Second question is, talking about Iran, and suppose we decide to do what you and I believe needs to be done. Do you have the refuelers available to make that remarkable distance? I mean, the tyranny of distance is unbelievable. I'm not sure what you have.
It's problematic, sir. We have our old, what we call AIM tankers. These are based on KC 135s, 707s, if you will. The airframe is between 50 and 70 years old. We have placed an order for some KC 47 tankers. These are the newest tankers, spanking new tankers that don't always work, from made by, believe it or not, the Boeing company, which is strange because everything else they make works. Sorry. And we're waiting to get those. As an aside, sir, I just read today, Israel has placed an order for F-15s, F-15 EX. These are the newest version of F-15s. They can carry a tremendous amount of ordnance long distances, for instance, from Israel to Iran. And what Israel is asking right now is that we get moved up the queue, because right now we're at the back of the line. We placed our order. We're the back of the line. We're getting them in 2028 and 2029. We've asked the U.S. to push that forward, so it comes next year.
Yeah. And the tankers, have there been any response from the U.S. on tankers?
Do not know.
Okay.
I do not know. That's people being very, very quiet about it. There was a lot of noise made about it by us and some other organizations about a year ago. Since then, it's gone quiet, and I can only assume that this is being handled on other channels.
Okay, thank you. Great briefing. Great briefing.
Thank you,
Mhm.
sir. Before I forget, guys, remember those booms that I heard, the thuds that I heard that scared the living daylights out of me? I'm happy to report that those thuds were from Israeli artillery fire about 15 miles to the north. It's a massive assault on southern Lebanon now. So that is what I was hearing. I feel a whole lot more safe.
Go get them.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
go
you,
get 'em.
Ari. Thank you, General Krulak. Does anybody else have a question for Ari or Heather? Any other questions?
Ari, can't look at you without just saying we love you, brother. We're praying for you every day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
Hey, Ari,
Oh,
this is your
VP. It's
cousin
VP.
Bruce.
Oh, Louis, how you doing?
I'm doing good, my brother. I'm Yisrael
Cool.
Guy. We are so proud of you, and everybody on this call is doing everything we can so that our country will not let you down. We apologize that we've not been there as much as we should, but we're not going anywhere, and we're going to do everything we can to keep you safe, including praying for you every day. Shana Tova, Chag Sameach, good Yontif, my friend.
To you too, Bruce. You know what? I appreciate it, and you didn't have to tell me because I knew you were there. I knew you guys were there. I'm talking to a home crowd here. Just make sure the message gets out if you can.
Great. Anybody else? Okay, great. Well, so good to see all of you. And just want to thank you so much. So many of you are caring and giving and participating and watching on the walls of Jerusalem at this time. And there's not words for how much we appreciate the support around us, the encouragement. It has been a year of carrying a war. And it is, it's got layers of exhaustion to it, starting in Israel and its ripple effect out of those who are trying to do everything we can, as Bruce said, in our power to affect and to be there for this nation at this time. Thank you 100 times for staying in the loop, for reading the newspapers, understanding what's going on, and we're doing our very best to get updates to you on a regular basis. And you're welcome to reach out. We're available if you have questions for us, but we just want to tell you how much we love you and appreciate you. And it's good to be with you. I'm going to say a prayer for Israel right now. So, Father, on this incredible holiday week, in this sacred, holy week, I want to thank you that you have turned around this war at this time, that we're in a time of redemption, where your holy hand is raised high over this nation, where we can put our trust in you to know that sovereignly you are working all of these things together for our good. And I want to thank you that in the midst of this sea of this morass of difficulty and evil all around Israel, that you are raising up a strong confederation of nations and leaders that are going to be able to stand there with and in treaties with Israel, just as we understood from the scriptures. Lord, I bless Ari Sasher, Iran Glaser, who are over there leading in so many ways the foray on that side of the world, the National Leadership Center and Ari with USIEA. We bless their families. We thank you for covering and protecting them and giving them absolute peace in the midst of this storm. We bless your name, Lord. Amen. Good to be with all of you.